This is the Houston Football Show, brought to you by the Prime Social Poker Club and Inside Edge, with your hosts, Aaron Wilson and Jayson Braddock.
Welcome into the Houston Football Show. I'm Jayson Braddock, and along with me, as always, is Pro Football Network's NFL Insider, and here locally in Houston, KPRC2 and Sports Talk 790's Texans Insider. Aaron, been a fun day in sports. We get to check any, non-football games today.
I did see the ninth inning, so yeah, I watched Jordan Alvarez's game winning home run. So yeah, I saw that. I watched his interview. Thought that was cool. So yeah, we cut that on really just at the end, and I was working and took a little break to watch the ninth inning. So yeah, that was cool. Go Astros.
Yeah, amazing comeback there. Just had a feeling the whole time they would come back. I didn't know it'd be in dramatic fashion like that. Postseason baseball, fun to watch. But we know why you're here. You're here to talk year-round Texans football. We do it once a week, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central Time. iLogic Media, Jonathan Dangerco and Mark Larson producing for us here. We always thankful for having those guys behind the scene. But let's get right into it, Aaron. Texans get their first week. Always great to get that win going into the bye. I'm sure the Texans have regret over how those first four games unfolded. Wish to come out with a couple more wins, but with the parity in the league, they're still in the hunt, specifically there in the AFC South. I should be more specific with. But there were positives to take away from this game. I want to jump in there with this first win. Davis Mills, no turnovers, sacked only once for the second time in 3 games. I think that's big. And really, Mills didn't have those overthrows and sells that we had seen in the first couple weeks. Couple misses coming from pressure, Rex slipping out of the break, different things like that. What did you think from Davis Mills in this game?
I mean, I thought he was just okay. He was solid. The best thing he did was he didn't have any turnovers. So when he doesn't throw interceptions, there's something of a formula here. And Lovie Smith was acknowledging that. I asked about that on Monday about you can run the football, not turn the ball over, and have some timely defense, including the takeaways they had against Trevor Lawrence, a couple of interceptions, one by Derek Stingley Jr., another one by Desmond King on the Hail Mary heave to end the game. Then you can win a game with, and the special teams is like probably the only, unit that's consistently good. The punting,
Absolutely. Great
season so far by Keem Fairburn in the kicking game, and not a ton of big returns, but not a lot of mistakes. So pretty good kick coverage. Frank Ross, the special teams coordinator, has done a really good job again this year. And they have a lot of veteran players that are good at special teams, and guys like Grantland Arnold that have earned their roster spot on special teams. That's been a good unit. But Davis Mills, it's not like he's playing terrible. He's just, not playing a lot of, winning football. The best thing he did, there was some trust throws to Nico Collins on the sideline. There was a really nice touch pass to Jordan Akins that set up the game-winning touchdown. I thought he did okay. I mean, it's not like the Jaguars have a bad defense. They have some talent over there, but he did enough. And essentially what they've done now is they've shifted him to game manager. This is
100%. And that wait, let me stop you there, because that's actually where I wanted to go. It's funny that you mentioned that, because where is the balance, and does it shift later in season, like if they consistently lose or if they win? Is it based off of that? But where is the balance in developing Davis Mills' weaknesses or playing to the strength, because you're in these games and trying to win the game and being a game manager, like you mentioned?
This point was made to me, and it really resonated. Someone with the team. They said that within the improvement, you're seeing a regression of statistics, but that he is a more complete quarterback. And I agree with that. What it means is he was only asked to read part of the field last year. So some of his success is triggered by just throwing to Brandon Cooks, who's open, and getting
Right.
comfortable doing that.
Oh,
When
great
you're
point.
asked to see the entire field and go from progression to progression, the margin for error goes up. You have a more opportunity to make different kinds of mistakes. And so we've seen within the same game, he's not consistent, as Nick Caserio said today, not consistent enough, at least.
Right.
We've seen him slide
Now,
in the pocket. We've seen him
yep.
muscle some throws. We saw against the Chargers, he led them back. We saw, progress. The issue is just really, when does he put it all together? And when he does put it all together, is his ceiling still very high? And the answers are kind of incomplete, but, we're starting to get some crystallization of what we think of Davis Mills. And it's a week-to-week proposition. But in my opinion, he's just showing that he's like a high-end backup or a poor man's starter. He's not showing you that he's going to be a top half upper echelon quarterback. He's going to be in the bottom 10 starters in the NFL right now if you were ranking them. And that's okay. That's where he is. You have to accept him, warts and all. He's your quarterback. If he doesn't commit turnovers, I am fine with them keeping him out there the entire season, and you see what happens in the offseason. You just chop that up then. But for right now, the way he played, there's nothing wrong with that. Jason, it's fine. It's just, obviously they're not asking him to do very much. They've kind of taken a little bit of air out of the ball for him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think someone could cut up bits and pieces of that and may disagree with it. But if you take the totality of what you said, I think it's beautifully stated. I think it states where he's at now, how they're treating him, and maybe from that, how they feel. So I won't add anything to that. I think that's well stated. Moving on to another young player, a rookie, in fact, 4th-round pick, Dameon Pierce. What else can you say to this point? He's not a top rookie. He's one of the top 5 running backs in the NFL to this season to this point. Aaron, what else do you say about Dameon Pierce?
Well, Dameon is still improving. So this isn't
true. Absolutely true.
In my opinion, like the finished product of Dameon. And, if he can continue to maintain his health and like as he did on Monday, getting in the weight room, squatting with 425 pounds per Nick Caserio. So he's doing everything in terms of recovery and maintaining his strength in the season. He's a very strong runner. 5'10" is not tall, but you don't really want a tall running back. He's 218 pounds. He's very strong. He's got a max squat that's closer to 600 pounds. He's very strong. He plays much faster than his 40 time. I don't really care about 40 times. It's more, what's your field speed like? If you can run 75 yards for a touchdown, then you're fast. So he's fast. He's determined. And he refuses to go down. So he's very admirable as a running back. He's got a different style. Arian Foster was more of a glider, and this guy is a violent runner. And I don't think linebackers look forward to playing against him because he's up in your pads, he's in your face, he's in your chest, he's in your grill really quickly. And he's a lot of fun to watch, right? Because, the kid plays fast. His vision is improving every game. I know the 20-yard run is the one everyone talks about. What about the run where he sort of like stopped in the middle, right behind the center, right behind Scott Quesenberry, froze the linebacker, and then cut back?
Oh, he got skinny. Yeah, and he does that real well.
Cool,
he'll squat behind there, cut on a dime, burst through a hole. Know exactly what you're talking about. He gets skinny through there and makes guys miss, breaks some tackles. It's just fun to watch him. He makes watching the film after the games a lot more enjoyable. Now, moving on before we get to the go ahead.
I actually passed on a comment, and I said it to Lovey when we were having our little media comment. I just said to him, I said, the way you're doing this, like, kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the things that Baltimore tried to do. They obviously added to that later, but they were just a team that ran the ball and played defense.
Right.
And they don't necessarily have a great defense here, but that the style of play, what they're trying to do, which is just blue collar football, that's fine. If you're winning, and there's no such thing as an ugly win. I think that was a quality win.
This year.
Jackson was talented. So, yeah, play hard. As Nick Caserio said, they play their ass off. They play very hard, and they are a hard-hitting physical team. They don't have every piece they need, but I think the fans can live with and appreciate this team, for what it is.
They're in every game. They're
No bells and whistles.
right. They're in every single game. They're competing. You wish that a couple of these games swing a different way, and then they're right there in the hunt. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think the fans, with what the expectations were for the Texans coming in the season, this is a fight hard team that the fans can ride along with, understanding what this season the expectations are. And before I move to the defensive side, I don't think Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard have gotten enough attention for just how good they play at that tackle position. Now, if they're 3-2 at this point and they're tied for third best record in the AFC, then I think we talk a lot more about Tussle and Titus. But when you're 1-3-1, a lot of stuff gets covered over. But uh, these guys are just playing top notch with the protection there on the outside. And I think some of the interior struggles has kind of taken away from what we've seen from Titus and Tunsil, and just especially this last year, as good as Tunsil's been his entire career in pass pro. I mean, what we've seen him put it together and the nastiness there and run protection. How do you feel? They've played this year, and you feel like it's a little undersold, the talent level that they're playing at.
I think it's a much improved unit, and you look back a year ago, Laramie Tunsil, he tears a thumb ligament around this time last year, out for the year. Titus Howard playing guard, then playing, out of position throughout the season. Justin Britt has COVID at one point, has some knee issues. You have a younger, more athletic center now in Scott Quesenberry. Right guard is better with AJ Cann. He's solid. He's a respectable starting guard. And then Kenyon Green has talent. He still probably could get in even better football shape, a little more optimal condition, but he gets movement, he gets push, he makes some mistakes, and he also makes a lot of good blocks, and he learns a lot from Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil is a Pro Bowl tackle. That's why he makes $22 million a year. And nice. I think Titus Howard at right tackle is really natural. That's a good spot for him. He's powerful. He deserves a second contract, in my opinion. We'll see, if they can see eye to eye on a deal at some point. I think he's definitely a candidate for that. They've got him secured for next year already on the 5th-year option. Maybe they'll play it out. We'll see. And, overall, it's a good group. They have decent backups with Charlie Heck and Justin McCray. So they've got a little bit of depth. And they also got Jimmy Morrissey. I think the line is better, and they seem to really have been bought into George Warhop, the offensive line coach, and his teaching. And we see this usually Thursday or Friday. They have homework, so they take tests, and they have written tests and quizzes, and the guys fill those out in the locker room. That's like a downtime for them to fill it out. And so you'll see Laramie and all the guys doing homework when they're not talking or playing cards. They have a running game. But, yeah, the linemen, it's a tight-knit group. They have lineman dinners. That's not very rare, but linemen getting together to eat. But, get together for like a nice steak dinner, and some of our good local restaurants, give them a couple recommendations. They don't need a lot of help finding the food. But, the big guys, that's not a bad group. It's not just Damian. They're blocking for him. And Davis does have a clean pocket most of the time. So, offensive line better. That's an improved unit. And
you talk about the big guys. I want to flip to the other side of the ball before we hit this first break and run through some of the defensive guys. Maybe as a unit, talking about those big guys, let's stay there in the trenches. Defensive line group, Malik Collins, Rasheem Green. I think Rasheem's really been a blessing for these DNs with the struggles we've seen against the run. His versatility to play DN and D tackle, what he can do against the run, but also from the pass. We saw him at that D tackle position, bat a ball this last game. We've seen him many times pursue to the sidelines and make stops against the run while also getting to the quarterbacks in those games. Malik Collins does a lot of the dirty work, disrupting plays that goes unnoticed because it doesn't go into the stat sheet. And to finish off on that D line, these D tackles, Roy Lopez, Kurt Hinish, Michael Drumfor, I think they may have found something with Lopez playing less snaps because he seemed more effective, especially on key plays. What's been your overall feel on these guys, those D tackles and DNs?
My overall feeling is, I agree with you, the Rasheem at 6'4", 279, gives him a bigger defensive end than John Grenard, Jerry Hughes, so he is a physical presence, and he's a good pass rusher. And then Jerry Hughes has got 4 sacks. He's off to a really good start to the season. John Grenard had to miss his pass game with a, kind of a sprained ankle. Wasn't
Sure.
real good on it last Friday. That was the only practice he tried. So they decided to sit him out. Wise move. He can get healthy after the bye week, get ready for the Raiders game. And inside, Malik Collins, the production hasn't quite been where it was last year. And, he's rested every Wednesday. They're managing a knee injury for him. And I just don't think he's 100% right now.
I think
So
that's a great point because a lot of times, Aaron, when players go out there and play, even if you see them on the injury report all week, if you're out there, we consider they're out there, I guess, as fans and media for the most part. So I think it's a great, conscious point to make that this guy's less than 100%. But I still like some of the disruptions he's had there. Do you have any final thoughts on that D-line group before we move to the linebackers?
there have been some good snaps from Kurt Heinisch, who
Yes.
was, one of their impressive guys in the preseason, and Michael
Especially that
Dwumfor.
4th and 1.
Yep, and Dwumfor plays well too. Those guys are tough inside, and Thomas Booker was inactive this past game, but he's given them some rush. He's a talented player, so they actually have some defensive line depth, which I don't feel like they had as much of last year. So it's gotten better, and they've got quality starters in Jerry Hughes and John Grenard. And they also have Mario Addison back. And Mario played a lot of
Right.
snaps. And I thought he was still shedding rust, but you could see he was fast
Absolutely.
up the
Yeah, you
field.
see the speed, the burst, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think he adds something. I know like he hadn't made a lot of plays because he's just
Right.
gotten out there, but I would keep an eye on him for more. I think he's going to keep contributing.
Yeah, that's more than fair. That linebacker group here on the defense, couple guys, Christian Kirksey, Garrett Wallow, Neville Hewitt, Reeves Maben. We saw a healthy rotation of all 3 linebacker spots, whether they're in base 4-3 or when they're in their nickel package there. To me, and I like what Wallow did dropping in the zone, some other things he did. He had a really good game. But a lot of times, I think they're rotating these guys in and keeping them fresh. We saw some benefit to that from this last game. Do you think that'll be the formula going forward, or are they just trying to patch this up, weaknesses and strengths through games until they get Christian Harris back up to speed and a part of those top 3 linebackers?
I think they're at a point now where they are going to think about how do they go forward with. I think Christian Kirksey is not going anywhere as the Mike. He's the defensive captain. Kamu's probably, played a little less well than he has. And then I think there's been, some moments. This was Garrett's first good game of the year. He had the ankle injury, and now he's healthy. So we saw him nearly intercept a pass. We saw a really good tackle for loss. He's instinctive. And I think he's a little bit of a cut above Blake Cashman, who had been ahead of him when he was hurt and had the concussion. So you always hate to see someone lose their job because of an injury, but that could happen with Cashman with the way that Wallow just played. For Christian Harris, they've got to – obviously they eventually want to have him in the starting lineup. And I could see – not predicting this, but I could see it happening if Kamu doesn't pick it up, where you eventually have Christian Harris, Garrett Wallow, and Christian Kirksey, and that maybe that's their best 3.
Yeah,
But
I
they
like
don't
where
play
you.
the
I like
third
your way
guy
you're
that
headed with
much.
that.
Yeah, I mean, and if they have to do it, they'll do it. But I think that he's going to have to play the way he did last year when he was making a lot of off the ball tackle for losses, and right now. He's not making all of those plays. He had a couple of good plays this past game. I thought he played better than he had in previous weeks. And, I think the knee injury from the offseason, he had surgery. I think that might be a little bit of a factor in what has gone on with Kamu. He's also just a little bit undersized as a linebacker.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
really all of them are. But I'm anxious to see Harris. I thought they were smart not to just throw him out there after a couple of practices because he had missed so much time.
Absolutely.
And they just didn't feel comfortable because he'd never played in a game before. But I'm sure that, he'll have a chance to be activated by the Raiders game, and then they have a decision to make.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, 100%. So we'll touch on that a little bit going forward. You got the bye week this week, then the Raiders game. They're at 1-4 for the Raiders. Moving on to the secondary, then we'll hit the first pre-recorded spot coming up here in a second. But in that secondary, a lot of youth in that group. Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie. I think he's still getting penalized because he had a lot of missed tackles early. He had one missed tackle in this game, but he's really starting to play with him and stuff a lot more, where you're seeing a lot less mistakes starting to click for him. When that aggression and the speed and all that all clicks together, he's going to be a special player. Derek Stingley as well, tied for 5th in the NFL with 5 pass breakups. He had an interception and a late pass breakup in this. We always knew Stingley was solid, and man, tackling is just special. Hasn't had a missed tackle all season to this point. He's playing 65% of zone. And so, I mean, we know the Texans aren't playing for a Super Bowl this year. He's getting that on-the-job training, 65% zone. They're only getting better. Desmond King really played well this last game. Steven Nelson was alert in zone, had some good plays as well. How much, especially the young pieces, how much can this team really grow together this year and take it into future years?
I think considerably, Jason. They're going to keep adding to this. So they're going to look at, what can you do to make this even better? And you can't have necessarily a high price guy at every position or a high draft pick. But do I expect it to be Derek Stingley, Steven Nelson? Yes, next year. I could see them having the same starting secondary with Jalen Petrie and Jonathan Owens. Jonathan Owens has played pretty well. He's made a lot of tackles. It's not good that he has to make so many tackles. The biggest problem on the defense is the linebacker spot, and maybe that works itself out with some of the guys that they have that they want to plug in. So, they might have the makings of a decent defense. I think they're going to eventually have to get better at defensive tackle. I think that you just never want to settle. You want to aim high. You want to make sure you have enough good football players. They have some guys on one-year deals like Rasheem Green that I'm sure they'll entertain bringing back. And so there'll be some negotiations and things like that will go on going forward. Kamu is on a one-year deal. Mm-hmm. And so, we'll see how they proceed. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see what's their thoughts on their defense. Are they in a spot where they need to improve and upgrade? But okay. I feel pretty good about the secondary. I mean, they've played pretty well. They have had, some challenging receivers and quarterbacks to play against. They did a good job on Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence has had 7 turnovers in the past 2 games. And wow. The fact that they were able to get, some turnovers on him, the Hail Mary pass, and the way that Derek Stingley read his eyes. And I'd love to talk a little more about Derek after the break and
absolutely.
What we saw from him. Conversation I had with his father as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point on Stingley, how he played the odds there in zone, went and got that pick in. Also, check out Aaron Wilson on Twitter at @AaronWilson_NFL. If you're not already, I'm at Jayson Braddock. And you can read those articles from KPRC to Pro Football Network, Sports Talk 790 that breaks down the conversation that Aaron Wilson had with Derek Stingley Sr. about what Junior did in that game. So great information there as always as well. Let's hit our first break. We'll come back and we'll get into some of the areas with Aaron after this first break that they need to really focus on that needs improvement coming in to that Raiders game.
Come out and enjoy Houston's longest-standing poker room with a stellar reputation for class and quality, Prime Social Poker Club. At Prime, you'll enjoy an upscale social environment, fully stocked bar, gourmet dining, pool tables, dozens of poker tables, and many other fun games throughout the venue. You can also join their over 21,000 members with a lifetime membership for only $10. What are you waiting for? Get into the game. Come join us at Prime Social Poker Club. Inside Edge was founded over 30 years ago as a data and analytics provider for Major League Baseball clubs. If you've seen the movie Moneyball, then you know Inside Edge. They were part of the data and analytics revolution in professional sports. Fans can now have access to the same insights and analytics used by pro teams for free at myinsideedge.com. My Inside Edge is a destination for sports bettors and daily fantasy players where they can find matchup-specific insights and projections to help make informed betting and fantasy decisions. Again, that's myinsideedge.com.
All right, we're back here on the Houston Football Show. Jayson Braddock along with Aaron Wilson, talking about areas that need improvement, Aaron. Interior offensive line. I mean, we're still seeing breakdowns in the running game. As you said, we're seeing improvement each week as this unit gets more and more reps together. But that interior offensive line is giving up the pressure. We saw two guys come. Quesenberry a little late to get over to that second guy. Damian Pierce picked up the first one through the A gap there. The delayed second guy coming through. Quesenberry's a little late to come off with Mills taking the only sack of the game in this one. Pretty good for the most part, but there's areas of struggle, and those areas are 90+% interior offensive line. What do you do? How do you work on this and get it fixed coming out during the bye week?
I mean, not much happens during the bye week other than the players are off. So, you'll self-scout a little bit, and I'm sure there'll be some points of emphasis and things they'll say, but it's not the thing that they had already mentioned. You try to coach guys to not commit crucial errors, to not make mistakes, but, there is no practice. So they're off. And I think the way you get better during a bye week is you rest up. But, yeah, I don't see any actual coaching points that you can make because you're not around the guys. So most guys go on a trip, they take time off, and it's a really early bye. It's not really great timing for the bye, but they're also a pretty healthy team, so it doesn't really hurt them. They're going to have a long run with no weeks off. So
Sure.
This is the healthiest you can get. I think that's the big emphasis. But, yeah, the interior offensive line, I mean, some of it Kenyon Green will just get better with experience, you would hope.
That was one of the things. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've got to mention it, but this past game, Kenyon's going to continue to get better and he's going to have down games, but it was surprising to me because he's just always been so solid in the run game. And this past game, that's where his biggest struggles. 5 different plays he had an issue with on the run game, with only 2 in the pass protection. So is that
they're
just
stout? I mean, Jacksonville doesn't have a lot of
point.
big names, but they have some good players inside, and
feel it was just more of a matchup issue this week?
I think there's a challenge. I mean, explaining why people miss blocks or commit penalties is something of I would say a difficult exercise because you don't know, if the player is simply just overwhelmed sometimes by who they're playing against. And sometimes there are mental errors. But, with Kenyon Green, I don't think he's struggling as much as, he's just not very consistent, completely well-conditioned athlete yet. But
Gotcha.
I think he can get there. He's really young. He came out of school early. I believe he's 21 or 22 years old. So, he's a baby. I mean, he's a young football player. He'll get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the guys, you're talking about some of the mental mistakes and different things players make. Philip Dorsett, at this point during the bye, you talk about them not being around, well, the first week, obviously, of the bye, but then that second week you come back for preparation for the Raiders. During that first week of the bye, and they're looking over the rosters and self-scouting, does Phillips Dorsett roster spot come in question? He's got 1 catch for 15 yards on 4 targets, and to this point, he's made more costly mistakes by a large margin than he has a positive impact. I mean, the drop passes, the penalties, the missed blocks that killed a couple runs. I mean, his holding call, Aaron, it made it 1st and 20 there late in the game until Travion Walker bailed him out with the 3rd and 20 roughing the passer. They've got 4 young receivers on practice squad. Do you give them a shot? Do you go out and add a free agent? Or do you just hold firm during the bye with Dorsett? Aaron?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question.
Oh, I was saying with Philip Dorsett, he's only got one catch on 4 targets, 15 yards, made more costly mistakes to this point than he's really benefited the team. We've seen the penalties, the drops, the missed blocks. I was reminding you about the holding call he had that made it 1st and 20 when Trayvon came back, the number one pick in the draft, roughed Davis Mills on 3rd and 20. If he doesn't do that and the Jags go on and win that, Texans punt there and the Jags, let's say, go on and win it, we're talking about Dorsett costing him. They've costing him. He's costing the team so much at this point, more than he has a positive impact. Is his roster spot in jeopardy during the bye?
I haven't heard at all that they were going to make a move at wide receiver. No. So I don't anticipate that. They did make some other moves on the line. So Casey McDermott, former Jaguars offensive guard, University of Miami, has joined the practice squad. And they've also, make sure I don't mess up his name here.
Micah Treadway.
Micah Treadway, formerly of the Chicago Bears, 6'4", 308, undrafted from University of Minnesota, also played at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. So they bring him in, and he had worked out for them before, and they bring him in now for their practice squad. So a couple practice squad moves, and they also cut Nick Eubanks from the practice squad, the tight end that recently joined them.
Well, doing the simple math there, they're going to have to, you add 2, cut 1. They're going to have to make another move. We've talked last week about Jordan Akins probably getting promoted, which he did for the 3rd time this past week. So do they kick the can down the road on Jordan Akins being promoted and just make that decision?
I had one person predict to me that Brevin Jordan would be up and that Jordan Akins would
just stay on the practice squad. And Shrek's got one more promotion.
Yeah, that they'll, like you say, kick the can and delay that decision.
Yeah, so I think that's fair.
But I think Akins has done enough in the receiving game. The problem is you have a draft pick that you spent, not as high a draft pick as you did on Jordan Akins years ago, but that was Brian Gaines' pick. But Brevin Jordan is Nick Caserio's pick. What do you do? Because in my mind, Jordan Akins is just better at this point as a receiver than Brevin Jordan. So, it should be fairly academic, but maybe it isn't. And some of it has to be like giving Brevin Jordan more chances to establish himself. Jordan Akins is an older player. He's 29 years old because he played minor league baseball for the Texas Rangers farm system. And Brevin is just at the start of his career. So maybe Brevin will get better. But, he hasn't shown yet. He dropped passes in the preseason as well. So I don't know. I think they have a decision to make there. Is it a crucial decision? Every decision is pretty important when your margin for error is so small. You barely can win these games. They just won their first one, and maybe they can beat Vegas, maybe they can't. They don't seem to match up well with some of the things that the Raiders have, but we'll see. That's why they play the games.
They've got several roster moves coming up. So I think Jordan Akins, you kick it down the road a little bit.
Come back.
Yeah,
so,
Christian Harris.
Things beyond, Christian Harris. There's at least, I would say, 3 to 4 moves coming up.
Yeah, because when we look at that and let's project it, Tavierre Thomas, and that's another one. It makes sense to hold him out. I think he's probably ready to go. And this is just me projecting, not Aaron reporting anything. But, just me reading tea leaves. I think if they needed him this week, he could come up and play. I think he probably, if they needed him last week, come up and play. But to do that, you'd have to cut somebody. And I think they like what they've got at that position. So you get a little extra roster spot with Tavierre staying there, and you can buy some time with the 21-day window before you have to activate them. So, again, just with the Jordan Akins, I think they're doing some roster Olympics flexibility here, kicking the can down the road a little bit on a couple players. Christian Harris, though, to go back to him, do you think he has a chance to be promoted for this Raiders game?
Yes. Yes,
Nice.
I do think that will happen.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Seeing Christian here in the third round pick. Everyone's excited to see him. And they need that speed. I understand he's going to make, some mistakes, have some bumps. Compare it to Jalen Petrie. As great as he's been, we've seen the missed tackles in other areas he's going to improve. It's going to happen for these rookies. It's going to happen for Christian Harris. But at this point, I'd like to see that speed added to the defense. Now, let's play a little game of cut 2 or 3, Aaron. So projecting Christian Harris. And let's say they kick it on Jordan Akins, but maybe Tavierre Thomas they bring back. Who's those bottom of the rosters guys? They've got 11 guys active on the D line now. Is there a possible cut there? And we talked about Dorsett.
There's Jake Hansen. I mean, you could swap
Would you?
out.
That's
Hansen for
interesting.
Harris.
I didn't think you would go there with Hansen, but I had a note in case you did because I was curious. They've carried him and he's been active for 5 weeks.
I mean, he
Outside of
played
Garrett
for
Wallow,
Lovie-
a
he plays
couple
well in
snaps.
special teams. He also played for Lovie Smith at Illinois. So
Yeah, and he played a couple snaps in this game as well there on the defense to get him in the
he's
mix.
not a bad player, but I mean, you wouldn't want to.
Would you risk losing him? Well, no, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to lose them for Christian Harris, but
I
if
think
you
you
got
clear
11
waivers and sign with the practice squad. I mean, there's.
So you do feel okay. That's kind of where I'm getting at. Do you feel like they feel safe enough?
You can't
that he
feel
could
like
be a move?
so attached to this roster when
The
you're
young
one
guys,
thing.
but could you with the young guys? I understand you're not going to feel attached to the vets, the older guys.
No,
bottom of the
I
roster.
appreciate what you're saying. I think Jake is worth keeping. My point is just that
Not as
you
valuable.
you can't have so many guys that aren't contributing on the 53 man. You've got to
Fair point.
have more guys that are capable of playing a major role, and that's what you ideally want to have. And as far as other spots,
But does
you
a
know,
switch get made at some
with
point this
DB, I
season? there?
mean, you have some flexibility. I mean, you could cut Braylon
Gideon?
Arnold. You could do a lot of things. There's some other DBs you could let go of to get, Tavierre back on the roster. Tavierre makes them a better defense and a better football team.
Yeah, that's
So,
how I feel as well. He's better up on the
it's
roster.
a
I
missing
understand.
piece. He's kind of a
Yes.
glue guy.
Yeah.
I think that you talk about tackling.
Yes.
He's one of the best tacklers on the defense. So
And they
when
haven't
you
played
have
a
him
lot
back,
of
they're a better
dime.
defense.
They haven't played a lot of dime. So if you bring Tavierre back with the way Desmond King's going, I mean, put him out there with your safeties. There's your dime package. I mean, they had an entire drive against Jacksonville. The entire drive was nickel. I mean, yeah, you're in sub package, but there's no mix up. There's no dime. And if they activate Tavierre Thomas, I think we see a little bit more of a mix with some dime in there as well. So, yeah, it makes sense to get Tavierre up as soon as possible. Damone Harris, they've got 11 active on D-line. Philip Dorsett, they got 4 on the practice squad and 4 others active. He would make sense to me, and Isaac Gideon. But there's a couple I'm just kicking around. Jake Hansen, I kind of wanted to get after that with you because I was curious if you felt like he would be safe to the practice squad. Because if you get to some point, let's say they lose the next 2 games, and you're sitting there and it looks like, all right, we're just playing for development this season. At that point, your future linebackers are Garrett Wallow, Christian Harris, and at that point, trying to kick the tires on Jake Hansen in season would make sense. So I guess that was my concern, but you feel like he would be safe to that point and would survive the practice squad, and also to add to that, Graylin Arnold as well.
I mean, it's hard to predict that not knowing what the other
True.
teams think. So
Yeah, that's true.
I couldn't really venture a guess, but I think these are chances that you have to take. You can't get squeamish about the roster, and Nick Caserio won't. He'll make the tough calls he has to make and do everything he can to make some changes. You never know. There could be injured reserve. There could be other guys he can get off the team. He does have a tight cap situation, so every time he puts someone into reserve and then has to replace them on the roster, so that's always tough.
All right.
I better get running. Jason, good to talk to you. I look forward to talking to you next week. We're going to talk about the Raiders game.
Absolutely. Take care, and appreciate your time as always. And I got to shoot you your $10 Starbucks gift card after you successfully predicted.
Absolutely. And you got my Chick-fil-A one, right?
Oh, I absolutely did.
Because the Raising Cane's, I would have had to mail you the gift card.
No, that's no worries. I got the Chick-fil-A and
And
enjoyed it that day.
we'll think of something fun for Vegas, and I'm going to
All right.
Vegas for the game. So we'll
Oh,
think of
nice.
something.
All right,
All
that
right,
sounds
buddy.
good.
Good to talk
Aaron
to you.
Wilson, you take care, buddy. All right, that's Aaron Wilson, NFL insider for Pro Football Network, Texans insider for for KPRC2 here locally in Houston, and also Sports Talk 790 as well. All right, we're going to take a quick spot here to talk about our title sponsor. I'll get back into the second half of the show. I want to break down different things, what's coming up after the bye, and some second half fixes for the defense and offense as well. Please keep it locked here. But first, let me tell you about Prime Social Poker Club. This is Houston's longest standing poker room with a stellar reputation for class and quality. It's an upscale environment. It's got a fully stocked bar, gourmet dining, pool tables, dozens of poker table every other Friday. Like, I'll be out there this Friday. It's a bye week, so I'm gonna go out there this Friday, and I'll jump on the the live stream with Reese, and we'll talk about it. You can see the games played. If you can't make it out there, watch the stream at Prime. And me and Reese, he'll be breaking down the hands. We'll talk a little bit about the sports going on in the city as well. But you can see how the hands play out, just as if you're watching the World Series of Poker, with the percentages there, what outs remain, everything else. So if you're a student of the game, there's some extra little added reps you can get there at the house, on your lunch break at the job. Check us out. I go out there every other Friday with Prime Social Poker Club. You should be going out there all the time. 7801 Westheimer here locally. They've got some great tournaments coming up. They've always got their nightly tournaments and daily tournaments as well to go along with their cash games. Whether it's Pot Limit Omaha or Texas No Limit Hold'em, you can get into your game there. We've got some big announcements coming up. We're planning something next month. I don't want to announce it now until we finalize it, but next month we plan to do something with them. Houston Football Show out there at Prime Social Poker Club. 781 Westheimer. Go check it out. All right, let's jump back into it. Second part of the show. I want to look ahead a little bit. Texans' next 6 games. And we talked about this a little bit last week, talking about the next 6 games. And Texans were able to pull out that first one. Let's keep the trend going, looking at the next 6 games. Got that first win in the books. And you might not know this, but Davis Mills, this was only his second road win. Yes, hasn't been a lot of wins in his 2 years or year plus here in Houston, but this was only a second road win. And coincidentally, second time he's beat Jacksonville on the road. So Jacksonville is the gift that keeps giving in the AFC South, at least for the Texans, the last 9 times they played them. Well, the Texans have, in these next 6 games, an opportunity to get back in this AFC South race. This might sound crazy to you. I know people talking about tanking and all this, but it's not insane to think that the first 4 games of the season, the Texans could have easily won 2 of that. Whether you're talking Colts, Broncos, Bears, or even the Chargers with the comeback falling short. Throw out any one you want to. All I need you to get on board with is that they win 2 of those first 4. And anyone that watched those games played out and all the self-inflicted wounds and all the mistakes and still be there on par with them at home and on the road on those teams, the Texans were still in those games and competitive and probably should have won at least half of them. So with that thought in mind, this is the same football team. Yes, I guess you are what your record says you are, as the old adage says. But this is one of those situations that if just 2 of the 4, not even the whole 4, 2 of the 4 goes your way, you're 3-2. You're first place in the AFC South, but also with all the parity in the league, there's nobody even undefeated in the AFC. So your 3-2 record would make you tied for the 3rd best record in football. This team could easily be that. So keep that in mind. I just laid the foundation and the groundwork to just have you give me a little bit of leisure to lay out the blueprint for the next 6 games. And for the next 6 games, the blueprint is to win 4 of those. If you look record-wise, you're like, no, they're going to at least lose 4 of those. You got 2 1-4 teams, 2 3-2 teams, a 4-1, and a 5-0. The NFL is always said to be a game of inches, this year more so than anything else. So each one of these games are being swayed. These are mediocre teams. There might be 3 or 4 good football teams in the NFL this year. Bills, Chiefs, Eagles. If you want to throw somebody else in there, have at it. There's nobody I'm banging the table for saying, yeah, this is one of the elite teams. And there's teams with 4-1 and 3-2 records that I think are some of the worst teams in the league. So I wouldn't pay too much on the record. Let's take this game by game real quick, second half, and what the Texans need to do. Keep in mind they need to win 4 of these 6. First up, after that bye week, you get refreshed. Maybe you get Christian Harris back. Maybe you get Javier Thomas back after you get Mario Addison back, and he knocks a little bit more rust off. The team where most people are getting banged up, the one benefit of having that early bye week, you're refreshed, you're rejuvenated, and the Texans haven't been annihilated by injuries like some teams have. So it's a double benefit because you're getting players back, you're having your bye week, and you've been relatively healthy. Now you go into that against a team in the Raiders. Raiders 1-4. They have a worse record than the Texans. And this is a team I thought would be really good this year. They have a coaching staff and front office that Nick Caserio and the Texans front office are very familiar with, know how they're thinking, know how they want to run their team, their offense, and everything else. So I think this comes down to the variables of familiar. I can never say that word. I'm not even going to go there. This comes down to them being familiar. And by that, I tilt the scales more towards Caserio and Lovey and the Texans in this situation. And the Raiders have the pressure. They also on a bye. And they come out of this 1-5 as a team that many thought was going to be a playoff team, present company included. And then you got the Texans that many thought would be the worst team in football, and they're not. Now, you can say they're not a great team. You can say whatever you want, but to say they were going to be the worst team in football, I just never seen that, and they're better than 1-3-1. So we look at that. Let's expedite just a little bit more now. Texans, Raiders, 1-4. It is on the road. We know Davis Mills does struggle on the road. He did just beat a Jaguars team on the road, though, but both his road wins in his career are against the Jacksonville, so maybe that's just that Jacksonville Duval blessing. Lots of talent on those Raiders teams, but they keep finding ways to lose the games. And the Texans have kept getting a gift horse the first 4 weeks, but they just, instead of looking it in the mouth, put a gun at it and shot it in the mouth or shot it right in the head dead those first 4 games. Game 5, they took those blessings when the Jaguars were making similar mistakes, and they didn't counter them, and they won the turnover battles. This might surprise you. We talked going into the season, the identity for the Texans is the successful running game, eating up the clock, defense that's tight in the red zone, throwing down the seams to tight ends, which we haven't seen enough of. I'll get into that in the second half fixes for the offense. And but this team is who we thought they were, but they just keep shooting the gift horse in the mouth, so to speak. This Raiders team, they can beat them, even though it's on the road. And Davis Mills has played poorly throughout his short career on the road. But this is one the Texans know they have to have, especially with the Titans following up that next week. And I think the Raiders, just like all the other teams with different injuries, dumb penalties, and mistakes, they've given the Texans opportunities not only to stay in these games, but actually win them. I think the Raiders might do it, and they may have already done it. No matter what you think about the Davante Adams shove, and I refuse to call it Shovegate. No more adding gates to just anything and making it a thing. I've banned that officially, 2022. Copyright Ricky Bobby Inc. So my thing is that you look at this, you look at these situations that teams keep blessing them, and the Raiders have blessed them with possibly already with the Davante Adams shove. He shoves the cameraman, if you didn't see it, after the Monday Night Football game. He came out, apologized, and I'm a firm believer people make mistakes, humans make mistakes. But that being said, you still got to pay your penalty, and he could be subjected to a game suspension. I wouldn't even be talking about this if the next game after the bye wasn't the Texans. And that's why I bring it up, because if Adams does draw a suspension, then the Texans could get another blessing, just like Shaquille Leonard not playing and Patrick Surtain going out and Jerry Jeudy going out. And on down the line, David Montgomery going out early. They kept getting these blessings, and they possibly continue to. And it could start off with Davante Adams, one of the top 5 receivers in the league. Moving on next to that Titans game. Titans 3-2. I talk about don't buy into these paper records this year. Here's the Titans' 3 wins. They beat 1-4 Las Vegas, who we just talked about the Texans having that opportunity to beat after the bye. They beat 1-4 Washington, who is game 5 of these 6 games I'm going to talk about in a second. And they beat the only team the Texans tied this year Indianapolis Colts, who are 2-1. That's the Titans' 3 wins. And they should have lost the Washington game. The only reason they won the Washington game is because Carson Wentz was blessed with a pass interference penalty that gave them 1st and goal at the 2-yard line. And with like 13 seconds so, time to run off 3 plays, they pass, with the 3rd one being a Wentz interception. I understand they don't have any timeouts, but you can't get in from the 2-yard on 3 plays. Y'all deserve to lose that. The Titans did not deserve to win that game. That's a beatable team. 3rd week, Eagles 5-0 in a league of parity. They've managed to be the only team to remain undefeated. They've got talent on both sides of the ball. This isn't parity for me. I think what we have here is, talent, true talent on both sides of the ball. And this is a team. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. It's a home game for the Texans. I'm giving that one to the Eagles. If you still want a surprise one, all well and done. But let's just count that as a loss. You still need 4 of these other ones, 5s. Those first 2, I think, are winnable games for the Texans. Then you got 4-1 Giants. Paper record. I know we all love Brian Dable. He's amazing. He brought Saquon Barkley back from the death. He made Daniel Jones a quarterback that you can manage a game around. I'm not buying the 4-1 start. Congrats on it. I'm not buying it. If Houston can stop Saquon Barkley, and that's if he's still healthy. I mean, we see all the injuries happen around the league. I hate injuries. Knock on wood. Hope Barkley stays healthy, along with all players. That being said, we know his injury history, and we see all the players dropping every year because of 17-game season, 3-game preseason. Players aren't even playing in the preseason. You got new coaches. You got new offenses. You don't have time to install it. You're spending the first 4 or 5 weeks learning on the fly. And Saquon Barkley is that offense. He's the Jenga block that I talk about a lot of time. You take Saquon Barkley out, the whole thing collapses. Can the Texans take him out? I don't know. They haven't shown that yet. If they can fix it by the time they face the Giants, they've got a possibility. We'll see how that plays out. I think that's a winnable game. Home against a 1-14 Washington team. This is a game you better win. You're playing Carson Wentz. You're at home against a 1-4 team. If the Texans, if they win 2 or 3 before this game, let's say the Texans win 3 or 4, like I think they have an opportunity to. Not saying they're going to, because they've had these opportunities to win 3 of the first 4, or maybe 4 or 4, depending on how you view it, and it came out with 1 tie. So I can't give them the benefit of doubt. What I'm saying, though, is there's that opportunity. If they win 2 or 3 of these games after the bye, say they lose the Eagles, they beat the Raiders, Titans, and whichever way you go with the Giants. Now, you got this 1-4 Washington team. You're back in the hunt. If you win this game, at least you're back in the AFC South contention, because all these teams are mediocre, and they're going to feast on each other all season long. Lastly, I think that's it. So I think four of those first 5 of the next 5 games after the bye are winnable games. And I think you have to take into account where you're playing at, getting that early bye week, being refreshed, coming back, getting players back, and benefiting from not getting hit with a lot of injuries. And also Davis Mills getting more comfortable, Pep getting more comfortable on how to coach to Davis's strength as well. Last game, Dolphins. For the season, I wouldn't have counted this. Early in the season, I wouldn't have counted this. But the 3-2 Dolphins have Waddle banged up, Tyreek banged up, Tua banged up. Now, this is 7 weeks out, so anything could be the case at that point. But even if they're back healthy, this defense has got so many injuries in that secondary. People are throwing all over them. This pass D can get torched. And a lot of these teams, if you run through these next 6 games, and you look at how they're ranked, they either got a hole on their run defense or pass defense, or either both. None of these are stellar defenses outside of probably the Eagles. Win 4 of those 6 games, the Texans are in hunt for the AFC South. That's why I'm not getting into the draft talk yet. That's why I'm not getting into the tank talk, because I think this is a team that should already be among the top 3 to 6 teams in the AFC if even half the things went right that went wrong for them first. I think it's advantageous where they're getting the bye and how healthy they've stayed and the players they've gotten back to this point. And so my belief on this is that they can win 4 of these next 6 games. But I just watched the movie and report on it. They lay out the plot for me. Let's take another quick break. We'll come back and end this show right after this on the Houston Football Show. All right, and I'm going to tell you about the Inside Edge, one of our title sponsors, Inside Edge. And if you haven't heard us talk about Inside Edge, or if you're not following me on Twitter at Jayson Braddock, and also you probably already follow him, but just in case, at Aaron Wilson _ NFL on Twitter. If you haven't seen the tweets and the stats from Inside Edge that I put out there, this isn't me. This isn't me. I crunch a lot of stats, look at a lot of film, all that, but this isn't me. This is Inside Edge. And who's Inside Edge is probably what you're asking. Well, if you've seen the movie Moneyball, you can probably relate a little bit more. Over 30 years, they've been bringing analytics to professional sports, back with Major League Baseball clubs, now through sports franchises, through every type of league in sport. And they've made it available. PR staffs have this package. Your favorite websites have this. So just these incredible stats. And now they've made it available for free to you at myinsideedge.com. Go to myinsideedge.com to check them out. Also, if you like to bet the lines, you got to check out the best part about about Inside Edge are their 5-star picks. Last year, NFL season, they went 34-14, a 71% hit rate last year. And you get one of these picks if you want to dab your toe in just a little bit, see what, if it's all what it's cracked up to be, $20 for the one pick. But let me go and tell you, if you're looking for the deal of the lifetime, get the entire season of picks for only $149. Entire season of 5-star picks from Inside Edge for only $149. Use code Houston, get an extra discount on top of that. All right, we're back to the Houston Football Show. Listen, strong here. Got a couple more segments here where I want to talk about second half fixes. Went a little long-winded in the last segment. Want to speed this up a little bit. Zone coverage. They have to get better in zone coverage, and this is one of the second half fixes. I want to start on the defensive side, but part of that is through repetition. You've got 2 rookies that are playing tons of reps, and these are live reps they're getting. The Texans aren't expected to play for a Super Bowl or go deep in the playoff or even to make the playoffs. They're playing this secondary 65, 70% of the time in zone coverages. We already knew who Derek Stingley was, man coverage coming out, and I knew he was a good tackler. I didn't know he was this great of a tackler. And if you follow me on Twitter at Jayson Braddock, you'll see the Inside Edge tweet earlier where I tweeted out he's one of only 4 defensive backs in the entire NFL that has a 0% missed tackle, meaning every tackle, all 24 of his tackles, he hasn't missed one tackle. Only 4 DBs in the entire NFL, and this one's a rookie, hasn't missed one of them. So you got that. You've got the man coverage, and you see when they play him in man that 35% of the time, and they ask him to go against number 1, he's right there in that hip pocket. When you need him to be that guy, he's going to be that guy 2023, 2024, whenever it may be. He's going to be that guy. I like what they're doing with it. Now that I'm seeing a little bit more of the Picasso come out, or the painting develop a little bit more, because a lot of times we got to just read the tea leaves and see, especially with Caserio. He's not going to give you a lot. He had a press conference today. I think he said they play football at NRG or something groundbreaking like that. Dude's a genius. He doesn't have to be personable to me if he keeps making the decisions he's made, the large majority. And you're not going to agree. You'll see me criticize decisions of head coach, OC, all that. Take it with a grain of salt, because it's in the totality of everything, it might just be a grain of salt. If Nick Caserio is doing 80% of the things I think are just genius, I can brush that other 20% on the rug. I don't need him to be personable. I need him to get Christian Harris in the 3rd round. I need him to get Jalen Petrie in the 2nd round. I need him to get Damian Pierce in the 4th round. You see what I'm saying? Once you got that type of clout with like, oh, okay, let me just shut up and sit back and watch. Let you finish painting. So we're starting to see more of that painting and how Stingley's development's coming along. Where 65% of the time, 70% of the time, he's in zone coverage. Work that weakness in a year where you don't have high expectations. So next year, when you hope to make that deep playoff push, then you have a well-rounded Darrelle Revis. And that's what the expectation is. And when you take a corner 3rd overall, that's what the expectation has to be. I think that's what the expectation was. And the crazy part about it, I think Stingley can hit the expectation. We'll get more to that. Let's continue to see the zone developing. But he showed 2 plays this past week that really showed him like, it's starting to click. One was the interception there in the end zone. Aaron talked about him looking and seeing Trevor Lawrence's eye. Right before that, he's in zone. He's off to the side. He knows his tight, restricted area. Somebody's got to be around. He looks for a man in the area, locates him, immediately turns back to Lawrence, reads his eye, then gets in a position for the pick. That he's not making that week 1. He's not making that last week. Seeing that type of growth, you're like, oh, okay. All right. Let me let you work. I see what you're doing now. And it makes a ton of sense. And when you see big picture of the Houston Texans and what Caserio and staff are building here. Linebackers dropping all season. Let's move on from the zone coverage here. Well, a little bit of an add-on, I'll say, to the zone coverage. All season, when the Texans defense holds the opposing offense to a 2nd and long, 3rd and long, what do quarterbacks do? Especially vet quarterbacks. Now, the Texans caught a little bit of a blessing getting Justin Fields, Russell Wilson struggling, Matt Ryan struggling for part of it. The quarterback playing Trevor Lawrence, obviously, as well this past week. They've caught a blessing with not getting that Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, vet guy that can just, all right, you're playing this soft zone. You're giving too big of a window, pop, pop, pop. But it has been so soft, softer than it's supposed to be. So it's not Lovey's defense, it's how it's being played. Part of that is the linebackers getting deeper. Part of that is Stingley still growing and getting the field exactly when he releases, when he drops, and it's coming to him as we just seen. I mean, the end of that game, to put a period on the Stingley thought from earlier, the end of that game, he's in zone. They throw, I don't remember his 4th down or what, but they throw, and Petrie was over the top. Stingley drops in coverage and gets his 2nd pass breakup, his 5th of the year, 2nd of the game, 5th of the year, which makes him tied for 5th in the NFL. So you're seeing that click for him and seeing Stingley grow as a player. But that defense with Stingley and other players, even safeties, but it's mostly linebackers. And you'll keep hearing them talk about the issue being the linebackers because they got to help out against the run. We're seeing too many missed tackles, not filling, and they got to help out against the pass. We're seeing too many zones that are soft, that are softer than what they're supposed to be or what Lovey would expect. And I'm putting words in Lovey's mouth there, but what I would imagine Lovey would expect. Linebackers dropping, though. Defense does a great job, holds them into a 2nd and long, 3rd and long. Vet quarterback just drops back, and he's hitting that soft spot. He's just waiting from the clear hip to hip to move into that soft spot and throw it in anticipation. You can't stop it because it's just too soft because of the coverage. Aaron talked about Garrett Wallow coming back. He made a difference. We saw him not only get into that passing lane, make a pass breakup one time, we also saw him get back. He was kind of confused and turned around. But even though he was still getting back into the feel of it, he had closed that window so much, it made it so tight. Lawrence had to overthrow the window. That's Wallow dropping in coverage, and that's what you want to see from your linebackers that you're not seeing from Kamu in coverage. You're not seeing from Kirko in coverage. You're not seeing from Neville in coverage the few times he gets in there. You see him in the run game, but the Texans have a bunch of linebackers that like, oh, he can do this, he can't do that. He can do this, and they're patching them together, and the rotation made a lot of sense. I thought that was artwork this past week, the way they rotated all 3 guys, kept them all fresh, bringing guys in, and you saw it erased a lot of the mental errors, and some guys, especially Kirksey, played better early and late in the game in key situations, and I think that rotation played a part of it. So Texans are continuing to develop. It's not just the rookies or Davis Mills that's continuing to develop. The coaches are learning their players. The personnel's learning their personnel and where the weaknesses are. And so I think the bye week, most years, week 6 bye could really hurt you. This year, I think everything, when you bring it all together, is actually beneficial to the Texans. Also, getting Christian Harris, we talked about him getting back. I want you to have some patience with Harris. Let's go back to the Petrie analogy. As great as he's been, as exciting as he's been, the interceptions, the big hits, he's also leads the league with 9 missed tackles, had 1 more. So we're seeing him slowing it down and correcting it. The game's slowing down for him. And I don't want to bag on them too much on those missed tackles because they were so front of the season heavy. And so we're starting to see them come on. But the only reason I bring it up now is because I'm not saying Harris is going to have 9 missed tackles early in his career. What I'm saying is they're going to be bumps. He missed all of camp, maybe not all of it, but he was hardly out there struggling with his injury. Then he comes back. He's got to get the playbook. He's got to get the live reps. Then when he gets in the game and he gets the live reps, he's got to understand the feel for his teammates around him, what he's seeing, and the speed of the NFL. It's going to be a lot, no matter how talented he is. Give him some grace of a learning period, but I'm excited to see his speed in that defense to help try to patch up some of the holes. Pressure, pressure, pressure. If you're going to play 65, 70% of defense, the D line needs to create pressure. This Texas defense, they're not getting there to the quarterback at the rate like you'd want to. Addison, I know he's knocking rust off. Hughes showed well early in the season, but this past game, it was late in the game when they come down and pinched the pocket that both of them went on a play. Outside of that, you really didn't see them. They were stonewalled for most of the game. Rasheem Green is the guy making the impact in the running game. He's the one getting in on D tackle and sub packages. On passing situations, third downs. He's kicking in on D tackle and batting balls and stopping running plays. He's been pivotal. They have to get Grenard back, and I know you got the bye coming up. Aaron said he should be back after the bye for that Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to misquote him on that, but he should be coming back after the bye as well. You need Grenard, and you need somebody else. You need somebody consistently get after the quarterback if you're going to run zone 65, 70% of the time, because you need the pressure. You need to move the quarterback off of the point, and it's not happening right now. And they're just sitting there and waiting for guys to clear the hip to hit with anticipation to those soft spots of the zone, and that's what's killing the zone. But I don't want to give you the negatives on all the fixes without pointing a positive that I think is really being brushed under the rug on this defense just because the team's 1-3-1. This Texans defense is a bit underrated. Let me tell you the struggles first before I tell you where they're underrated. Yeah, they're 29th against the rush, horrible against the rush yards game, rush yards per play, however you want to divide. They're 29th and not good at it. They're also 29th in first down allowed per game. Now, some of that might have to do with the Texans offense giving up the most 3 and outs, that the Texans defense just sees so many series, and that they're just worn out giving up more of these first down conversions. But 29th, both of those categories. And back to the pressure, 20th in sacks per pass attempt. Bottom third of the league is not good enough. So we look at that before I tell you the positive, though, and where I think they're a little bit underrated. I called Lovey's defense in a press conference, bend not break, and he said it's not a compliment. And I didn't mean it as a compliment when I asked it. I meant it for what it is. It's a bend don't break defense. Between the 20s, you can move the ball, you can hit passes, and you could possibly get some gashes there in the run game. But when you get down into that red zone, and when you get down to go, it's lockdown. It's almost like, you see the green and then you see the red territory on most graphics on NFL screens when they're showing the field. Well, that graphic's almost like the Texans defense, except it's like green from 20 to 20. Then you get inside that 20 and it starts turning a little oranges, kind of, almost reddish. And then you get inside that 10 to 5. Closer you get, it is just pitch fire red with this defense. The Texans defense, some areas that might surprise you, they're 9th in interception rate. They're 5th in red zone. They're 1st in goal to go. The Texans defense is the number 1 team in the NFL in goal to go situations and top 5, 5th in red zone situations. Yes, some of that's a benefit of the numbers due to seeing Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan struggling, Trevor Lawrence struggling, all of that. But this is the same defense. If we want to say that, we got to say this is the same defense that allowed those players to light them up between the 20s. Run to them between the 20s. Once they get down to the red zone and go to go, it becomes lockdown time, and they have done that. All right, last segment of the night. Let's look at second half fixes on the offense. Receiving back. I've been saying it before. The preseason, during the off season. I feel like I've been saying it for years. I don't have anything against Rex Burkhead, but I'm not a guy that I can meet a guy in the locker room and be really cool with him. He misses a play, I'm going to put a video up of him missing a play. That ain't on me, dude. That's on you. This is your film. You're writing this book. I'm reading this book. And so they might have, players might have hard feelings. I'm not talking about Rex. I don't know Rex, never met him personally. So I don't know him personally. He might be the world's greatest guy. This is a $1 billion business. It is bigger than Rex Burkhead and those that love Rex Burkhead. It is about the Houston Texans fans, those in the building. It's not about doing right by one player at the end of his career. Last year at 31 years old, Rex Burkhead had 124 carries. That's the most carries of his career at 31 years old. The team that drafted him didn't even rush him that much. His most carries before that, I think, was like 5-6 years ago. Was like 26 years old or something, and he only had 74. He comes to Houston at 31, he gets 124. Then the next year, they drafted back, and the first game, they give him 50 snaps, and Dameon Pierce, this stud rookie, who's top 5 in rushing despite only getting 20 offensive snaps week 1. So, like, all right, we finally got a forced hand. We've been called out with forced hand. We'll play Dameon Pierce more at running back. And Dameon Pierce plays more at running back, and he's stellar. But they're like, all right, well, we got to get Rex involved somehow. Let's throw him some passes. Rex Burkhead is the most targeted running back on third down in the entire NFL. He is 32 years old. No statistic can you find has he been good on catching the ball, running after the catch, or doing anything with the catch. And he is on pace to shatter his career at 32 years old. He is on pace to shatter his career high in targets and receptions. He's not a receiving back, but you're like, well, we got to give Dameon Pierce rest. No. You're setting up that storyline. You knew you needed a receiving back before the season. And Damien's a rookie. He has done things well in the receiving game, but he has to be more consistent. He's not catching some of these balls cleanly. He's not getting it and ripping it right after he catches it. So I understand why you want to go with a guy that you can definitely know is going to pluck it and go. And I understand in that situation, when you forced your hand, why Rex would get that. But if you're talking about 5 weeks into the season, Rex Burkhead is your receiving back role. He's your Austin Eckler catching out the backfield. He's your Darren Sproles. He's your Alvin Kamara or anybody else that is a young receiving back that has a receiving role that you would consider to have the most targets as a running back on third down, the most critical point of the game. John Elway used to say NFL quarterbacks get paid for what they do on third down. The Texans are trying to find out if they have a franchise guy in Davis Mills and he is struggling no more so than on third down among the league's worst. Because he's struggling on third down, it's leading the defense to playing more reps and they're getting worn down. Where does this domino effect start from? That third down conversion rate? Give him a damn back that's a receiving back and not Rex Burkhead. This is crazy that we're in week 5. Week 5 is over, headed into week 6 into your bye, and still discussing this. Don't get mad at me for telling you this is some stupid stuff. Explain it, and I will back off. But there's no explanation. If you want to give him, like Rex had a great run this last game, backed up in the end zone. I think it was like a 3rd and 7. He comes in the hole, got a guy face to face, gives him the shake, makes him miss, gets a first down. Rex was fresh. You want to give him 1 to 2 carries, 1 to 2 targets in the passing game? Have at it. Y'all can talk about it, Sunday's off season, but you remember when I brought you to Houston and I let you get the most carries of your career your first year, and I let you get the most receptions the second year and made you one of the most top receiving backs. That was crazy. I did it to the whole city and made all of Houston Texans fans and media watch it. Oh, that was crazy. I can't believe I did that. Cut it out. This is football. In a game of inches, in games where if you won 2 of those first 4, you're the 3rd best team in the AFC. You blew it. It's on you. You played Rex Burkhead 50 snaps. Casario, Lovey, Pep, I don't care who it is. Somebody's making that decision. Own it. You played him 50 snaps. And the guy you drafted in the 4th round is actually a really good running back. You only played 20. And even though you held him back in the first 5 weeks and only played him 20 snaps week 1, he's top 5 in the NFL in rushing. How do you justify that decision in hindsight when everybody beforehand was telling you it was dumb? So these decisions You can't say, well, let up on it. It's happening. No. These decisions, there has to be a consequence. There has to be another. You can't go into the bye week and know this is an issue and still come out the bye and sell it as like, well, there's nothing we could do. It's not like we have a couple running backs on the practice squad. It's not like we have Dare on the active roster that could actually possibly catch a ball out the backfield. It's not like we can go sign anybody off 31 other practice squad. It's not like we could sign a free agent. You could get a receiving back literally from anywhere. The whole thing of why you don't draft a running back early is because you can get these guys, especially guys who are just one role specific guys, not a 3-down back, a guy that's going to just catch out the backfield. Maybe you get lucky and find a guy who can catch out the backfield and block out the backfield. Anyway, something has to happen there, and they need to go get a receiving back if they're truly playing this year. If you want to tank, no issue with it, then at that point, I don't need you giving Dameon Pierce 20-plus touches a game. Both can't be true. Both can't make sense. Rex Burkhead's work and Dameon Pierce both can't make sense. You either need a receiving back if you're trying to win games, or you need to limit Dameon Pierce to 15 touches a game because this year isn't meaningful and you're tanking. I have no problem with you tanking. I don't understand it. Now, the players in the locker room might have an issue, but I don't think this team is tanking. You see the workload they're giving to Dameon Pierce. That just means the Rex Burkhead is an illogical decision that's not backed up by the eye test, not backed up by the stats. And it's just a personal decision that is holding back a team, and it's holding back to a point where they're 1-3-1 when they should at least be 3-2. Last I'll say on that, moving on, number 3 wide receiver, Philip Dorsett shouldn't be on the roster. I'm sorry, why are you calling for all these people's jobs? It's a business. I look at it as a business. I cover it as a business. I'm not trying to go to these people's house on Monday and have tea and crumpets with them. Philip Dorsett has 1 catch on 4 targets. He's got more drops than he has catches. He's got 1 catch on 4 targets for 15 yards, and he gave you a penalty in crucial point of the game. He's costing you at 4 times the return than what he's giving you in return. His roster spot doesn't make sense at this point. I'd rather see Tyler Johnson. You've got 4 young guys on the practice squad. I'd rather see one of these guys come in and get the rep. The number 3 wide receiver spot has been so bad that Mills didn't even throw to a 3rd wide receiver this past week. You realize that. Mills' wide receivers he targeted was only Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks, and the 2 running backs, Burkhead and Pierce, and then the 3 tight ends. He did not target Tyler Johnson. He did not target Philip Dorsett. And there was points where he may, I'm not going to say because I couldn't see his eye on it, that he may have seen one of them open, went to the next read. And I wouldn't blame him because with all the drops, I don't know if I'd trust these guys as well either. You've got to get that number 3 wide receiver position. I don't know if it's one of the 4 guys on the practice squad. I don't know if it's Tyler Johnson. I don't know if it's someone on another practice squad or a free agent that's out there. But if you're competing to really try to contend in the AFC South, which you can do, then you have to find that 3rd wide receiver. And you've got to do it now. You've got to play the Mills strengths. They've done that at times. Get ahead of the chains. Stay ahead of the chains. They showed Davis Mills on a 1st and 10 doing some RPOs where he runs with it. I love that. I think they should do that more. It takes another rep off of Dameon Pierce's legs. And I know he didn't get a ton of rushes in college. Like, well, why are you worried about his workload? Because it's real. If you get close to 400-plus touches, your body starts to break down. Jonathan Taylor, 299-plus touches, 3 straight years in college and his first 2 years in the pros. It's just how humans are built. And we've seen it time and time again, no matter how talented the running back is. So be cognitive of it. Don't put more work on Dameon Pierce than it has to be there this year if you're not playing for the AFC South. And I think they could be playing for the AFC South. But if you're not, then fine, give Burkhead the work or anybody else you want to. Keep him on the 15 touches. But if you're playing for the AFC South, man, then you need to give it to you need to give Pierce the work, and you need to find unique ways to take reps off the Dameon Pierce even in these games in contention without the fall off. That RPOs with Davis Mills and a true receiving back. The RPOs 1st and 10, you catch them off guard. They're so scared of Dameon Pierce at this point. He's got 18 broken tackles. The next closest is 13 in the entire NFL. Run that RPO. He's going to get you 2 to 5 yards every time on that. Get ahead of the chains. What else it does? It gets you, stops you from those foolish offensive line penalties that set you behind on chains, wide receiver penalties, so on and so on. Also, more seam and underneath throws. We don't want Davis Mills to be a check down. That's what I keep seeing people saying. He hasn't been a check down guy. I want to see it. The team's built for that. Check down, check down, check down. Do it. Just have a receiving back to check down, and you'll be surprised how much more efficient the offense gets to. Interior offensive line, they've got to be better. I understand Kenyon's a rookie, but 5 busted plays, 5 different plays in the run game, 2 in the pass. If he had 5 bad pass reps, I would understand it more because of where he's coming from as a run blocker. 5 different plays. Again, rookie early in his career, not going to beat a dead horse too hard here, I guess. But you can't have that, especially with Quesenberry and AJ can't have him plays messing up. But the chemistry is really starting to come along. Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard just playing at an exceptional level, and Tunsil's really taking his game up in the run game this year. So that interior offensive line, they have to find something to be more consistent, and they really start breaking down in short yardage situations and in the fourth quarter. So in those situations, the interior offensive line, they don't get better. It doesn't matter who the back is, who the quarterback is. The team's not going to get better. If the interior of the offensive line is soft, the entire thing collapses from the inside. Fourth quarter, fix the fourth quarter. It's not all on Mills. Some of it's offensive line. Some of it's drops, but a lot of it is on Mills. Whatever it is, the team as a whole has to be better in the fourth quarter. Protecting Mills, he has to be better getting the ball out and protecting the ball in the fourth quarter. 7 of his 12 sacks this year have come in the fourth quarter. 3 of his 5 turnovers have come in the fourth quarter. Mills and the Texans have to be better. More than anything, they have to be consistent. They've got the formula in place. You've got a dynamic top 5 running back. You've got a top 5 turnover margin team, defense, however you want to. But yeah, they're tied for 4th in turnover margin. I think they're +3 if I'm not mistaken. That's a formula for winning an elite running game, winning on the turnover margin, and a game-managing offense. And that's what I'd run with Davis Mills. I think the formula could change later in the season, but early in season, run that game manager offense like while you're still in the hunt, and don't worry about improving on his weaknesses unless it's just like a shot here, a shot there to just see if he can improve on it in game. Now you get to the point you're 1-7-1, 1-6-1. You get to the point it's clear that, hey, you're playing for a pick at this point. Any win helps. At that point, I'd still leave Davis Mills in at quarterback. And I would start playing towards his weaknesses and see if you can develop that up by the end of the season to help you make that decision in the draft. But that's the bye week episode. Win and Buy is what we're calling it. The 12th edition of the Houston Football Show every Tuesday, year-round, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Aaron Wilson, Jayson Braddock with the iLogic Media crew producing. We appreciate you always checking us out, telling somebody about it, and sharing it on social media as well so we continue to grow this and continue to build it because we got some great plans in store where we want to go with the Houston Football Show. That's it. 12th episode in the books. Can't believe it's already flown by that much. Enjoy your bye week. We're back at it next week previewing those Las Vegas Raiders.
Prime Social Poker Club opens daily at 10 a.m. and doesn't close until the last person leaves. Now, that's 24/7, 365 days a year, so you can always get your poker game on at Prime. Also, daily, free play starting at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. with happy hour from 4 to 9 p.m. They have daily and nightly tournaments with buy-in starting as low as $60 and going as high as $5,000. Now, check this out. Guaranteed prize money as large as $2 million. What are you waiting for? Get in the game. Prime Social Poker Club here locally in Houston, 7801 Westheimer.
This has been the Houston Football Show, brought to you by Prime Social Poker Club and Inside Edge.